on Substack specifically when they're building a paid newsletter and they don't have an audience from elsewhere is community. And so joining communities like Sparkle on Substack, but then actually networking in the chat, like talking to each other, coming to the Zoom classes, meeting each other, sharing their URLs, sharing their problems, sharing their issues, collaborating with other people, going live, doing blog hops, all of that gorgeous stuff. If you feel like Northumberland, I am an audience development consultant, engagement mentor, and Substack expert. And I absolutely love teaching about Substack. This platform has brought me so much joy, so many beautiful colleagues, so many lovely clients, and I have my beautiful membership, Sparkle on Substack. So if you've not seen it yet, if you've not seen what I'm about, go and check it out. It's Joyful Sustainable Growth. So the sustainability piece is what I wanted to talk about today, because I think this question's come up quite a lot. I've had quite a few beginners into my space. I ran a bit of a promo on my classes over Bank Holiday weekend in August. That's probably TMI, but it brought some new beginners into my space. And a lot of the questions that I've had in my hot seat mentoring recently have been around when to monetize on Substack. So when is the right time to go paid? So I have a class that is about building memberships on Substack because I've built a really successful membership here. I also have a paid newsletter that's a best-selling newsletter. So I basically do both. So I'm running a class on Thursday to go deeper dive into this, how to monetize your newsletter with paid subscriptions and build recurring revenue. The idea is that we can deep dive into that topic because it sits separately to a membership. You guys will know, like if you've been in any memberships, what to expect. A membership is, you turn up to a call, you feel held in a container monthly, usually, if not seasonally. There are other people that you can connect with and network with. And what I see on Substack a lot, and I'm not saying this is a mistake, but I think there's not a lot of consciousness about it. So I see people combining the two. I see them combining the paid newsletter with elements of a membership, but still just charging the like $5 a month or £5 a month price, and then getting frustrated that they're not being paid enough for their work, or that the churn's really high and they have to keep promoting to free subscribers. So in my mind, we'll have to separate the two things out. Either you're running a membership on Substack and you're really clear about that, and it's a community and it's got interactive elements around it, or you're running a paid newsletter and you are paywalling your writing. So it might still have some community elements, but they will be much lighter touch. So if you are running a paid newsletter, the price point that Substack started out with was $7 a month. Now that has significantly reduced since 2022 when I started. But they thought $7 a month, $70 a year. And then we've had all the conversations about, well, how many people can you physically support? We have people that swap in and out their membership. So I've studied so many paid newsletters, and I have had mine through 3 different iterations, and I feel really comfortable as a Substack bestseller with my paid newsletter. I know exactly what I'm doing. I'm heading into 2026 with a rough plan, and then I'm working with an editor to kind of come up with a more formulated plan about what that is. A lot of where people come unstuck is they're not sure what to charge. So in the masterclass on Thursday, we're going to deep dive into that with my Substack calculator. So I've got a calculator that works out, it's a Google sheet, that works out how much Substack take, which is the 10%, and then how much Stripe take. And then it gives you your kind of take home, so your profit at however many people you want to try and attract. So sometimes just doing the maths and sitting with those numbers can be really helpful to understand, do you want to offer a paid newsletter or do you want to offer a membership? Paid newsletters are a great way to start because they're low risk and low energy. Now, I'm not talking to the people that spend 10 hours editing, because that is not low energy, and I honour your creative practice. I love it for you, but a paid newsletter would feel like a lot of pressure. A paid newsletter that went out once a month, 12 times a year, might not. So again, the sustainability piece, when you're thinking about bringing people in who are going to pay monthly or annually, you've got to be ready. You've got to be ready to be like, I'm going to commit to this. Now, that said, there are always ways with this. So you should definitely, and we'll talk about this more in class on Thursday, you should definitely take some pause moments. So I take the whole of August off and 2 weeks in December. And that is just written everywhere so that people know. And then I'll remind everybody as well. Now, this year, I had a high amount of cancellations when I was off, and I just had to let that be. I just had to think, do you know what? My archive is so valuable and so special. And I'm talking about the membership now. And if people are ready to leave, people are ready to leave. Like, I do not have to do more. My value is not linked to my output. The value is there. You can pay for the value and access to the value, or you can leave. That's fine. But I do think we have to stand strong in that, because we don't want to become content machines. We don't want to burn ourselves out. We need to be really clear about what we feel when it comes to sustainability online, and longer term sustainability. So that's really important. When we're thinking about monetizing our words, it's a new concept. So obviously in your system, you're going to have questions, you're going to have imposter syndrome, you're going to say things like, who am I to write here when Elizabeth Gilbert writes here, or Emma Gannon or Beth Kempton? All of those things are going to come up, and, they are fair and just. However, the people who want to read your work are already waiting in the wings to turn around and find your beautiful messages. Please know that. Like, everybody had to start somewhere. So if you're building from the ground up, I applaud that. I was you. I did that. And I had a lovely time. I just think, have a nice time with it. If you know that you're building, there's less pressure because there's less eyes. So you can be experimental. The big piece that most people miss on Substack, specifically when they're building a paid newsletter and they don't have an audience from elsewhere, is community. And so joining communities like Sparkle on Substack, but then actually networking in the chat, like talking to each other, coming to the Zoom classes, meeting each other, sharing their URLs, sharing their problems, sharing their issues, collaborating with other people, going live, doing blog hops, all of that gorgeous stuff. If you feel like you've done the best job that you can possibly do with your work on Substack and it's all set up beautifully and no one's coming, it's because two reasons. The algorithm hasn't learned who to show you to, but also you just haven't been in there networking, and you do just have to do a bit of that. But you should also feel like that's an enjoyable thing to do. I've always really enjoyed it. So I've been part of Susie Walker's Heartleap writing group. I guested over at London Writers Salon. So they're another really amazing online writing group. They're not based in London, which always sort of is a bit confusing. But anyway, they're global. You can join their writing groups. You can chat with people. That's really positive. And then there are so many wonderful communities that you can just dip in and out of. So in terms of your publishing strategy and the way that you approach your work, if you're building from the ground up, if you want a paid newsletter, if that's in your sights and if it's in your big dreams for 2026, there's no rush. There's 3 months left of the year. After my class on Thursday, I'm going to set up a little accountability group for the people that come along so that they can support each other for this last chapter of the year and get really clear about what they want to do in terms of launching. I've also got launch classes inside of the membership. So if you were looking at launching now, I share all of my best tips. And all of my tried and tested ways to launch and relaunch. I've done it with hundreds of clients as well. So there's loads there for you. You don't have to be thinking, how on earth do I do this, and starting from scratch, because the support's there. Does anyone have any questions about monetizing a newsletter? So specifically monetizing a paid newsletter versus a membership. Do you have any questions about the blend that we see a lot on Substack? Do you have any questions about your own energy in response to that? I've got to go grocery shopping after this, but I'm here for a couple of minutes if anybody wants to ask. I think, like I said, I just see people get confused between what is a paid newsletter subscription and what to expect from that, and then what is a membership on Substack. And I think calling it a membership, calling it a community, a paid community, is one of the most helpful ways that you can communicate to your audience, a lot of whom don't understand Substack and never will. You've brought them in from other platforms, or they're just here for you, or whatever else is going on. So yeah, let me know in the chat if you've got any questions. And then I've got to go and get a load of groceries. My kids are like, have I got any blueberries? I'm like, no. You got any oranges? No. This morning I didn't even have toast. And I went in the freezer. There's always stuff in the freezer. So I was like, in the freezer. And I was like, do you want crumpets? And so they both said they wanted crumpets. But then my son doesn't like toasted crumpets. So I had to try and defrost them in the air fryer, which did not work. Would not recommend. So now I've just got like a bowl of mangled crumpets at home. It's pretty sad. But when your energy dips and you really just don't want to go grocery shopping, like, it feels like a big undertaking. So Yeah, I was in Manchester last week seeing Lady Gaga, which was amazing. And I seemed to sort of pick up some sort of bug, but also because it was such a spiritual experience, I had just felt energetically wrung out. Like I felt like I'd sort of died and gone to heaven at the concert. And then the sort of fall from grace from that point to like where I am now, I feel a lot better today, has been monumental. I've been like sweating through the night, like sweating out a fever, like questioning all my life choices. You know, when you're like, oh, I was just a bit poorly. So, um, okay, so Julia is here. Hi, Julia. We would look to a membership. I think I'm joining tomorrow. Oh, good, Julia. Great. So Julia's going to come to class tomorrow. So with the membership model, I've been running a membership for 2.5 years, nearly on over at Sparkle on Substack. And one of the really interesting things about what Substack give us is they give us all of the tools to be able to host a really effective membership here. So we have the chat function, which is like a WhatsApp chat. We can obviously use Substack video, Substack audio, or we can embed YouTube video as well. We can share Zoom links behind the paywall. We can record ourselves on Zoom and send that into our membership. So there's loads of beautiful tools. One of the things that I say to business owners is be really mindful that on Substack, the behavior is to swap subscriptions in and out. So we're all in a culture of paying for each other's work wholeheartedly, like we want to do that, but then what happens is it gets to a point where we're like, oh, I'm really overwhelmed, I can't consume any of this content. Like I would get 3 invites to 3 different things on the same day, and I'd be like, oh, I felt like I worked in the arts again, and I had to go from the top of Newcastle to the bottom of Gateshead and then back again in a day. And I was like, no, this is too much. But, you know, I'm in a phase of life where I want things to be slower and I want things to be more measured. So be careful how much you give people to do and come to if you're building on Substack, because if your audience is coming from within Substack, they will be making decisions about how many places they can join. So quite often people give the reason that they're leaving Sparkle because they want to go and join other things, or they want to try other things for a while and they'll be back. So it's like, I'm coming, but I'll be back again. So that's really interesting. I also think with the work that you do, Julia, because I know it a little bit, I think that it's in the inspiration category. So with the inspiration category, I think it could actually be more of a paid newsletter, and then you have the community element. So you do a bit of a sort of membershipy element, but just the community element, and you do that in a lighter touch way. So we can talk about that if you come in tomorrow. Tomorrow morning at 11 o'clock, replay is available. The main reason why I've positioned this class the way that I've positioned it, that it's just about paid newsletters, is because of all the burnout that I've seen. So it makes me really sad, because obviously as creatives, we have a lot to give, and Substack gives us a brilliant platform for that. But I've just seen so many people burn out, and I'm like, you know what? Like, I know how to do this work sustainably. I've worked in festivals and events all my life. I don't know if I've experienced burnout. I definitely had depression in my 20s and was signed off work. But I don't know if I've experienced burnout. I definitely experience energy dips, and I definitely have to manage my energy, and especially as I get older. But I do think that we can do that and still have an online presence. You know, there's scheduling tools. There's so many clever ways that we can do that. And like I said, I take the whole of August off and 2 weeks in December as well. Yeah, so a paid newsletter is, it's really interesting, because actually we're not talking about newsletters, we're talking about articles really. The newsletter element is you, and the old-fashioned newsletter element really is you writing a list of newsy type things and things that you've been doing and plugging people into your life and then sending that out via email. Whereas on Substack, we can write personal essay, we can write articles, we can do all sorts, so we can really make it our own. I really like people to get clear about the themes that they're working under and hold people. So as a space holder, I really want you to hold people in the theme of what it is that you're talking about, so people recognize it as your work. I think sometimes when people are like wrangling their own creative practice and process, it gets confusing for an audience. And like, it's fine for you to be a tortured artist in your own time, but sometimes it just gets a bit much, you know, if we're trying to work out what's going on. You know, I talked about it last night in a note. We don't want to rebrand 2-3 times a year. Nobody cares. Honestly, nobody cares. Use your name as your handle so that people can remember your name. Call your Substack whatever you fancy. It doesn't matter for now. And then as you work through this creative practice of expelling everything that is in your heart, everything that you've got to say, more thematic ideas will come, and then the personal brand will come. I'm actually going live with Amy Beeson, the lovely Amy, at 2 o'clock today. So Amy and I are going to talk about personal brand on Substack. Amy is such a brilliant soul, and I've spoken to her when I've had a few wobbles with brand alignment. So I'll speak about this to you guys, but basically some bad stuff happened with Substack as a brand, and I felt really small and really weak in that because I've built my entire brand here and my brand name has Substack in the title. And Amy was brilliant as a mentor, helping me to understand the bigger picture of what has gone on and where I should position myself and how I should continue to hold the work that I do here. She used to work in politics, which helps. So 2 o'clock for Amy on personal brand stuff. And I don't think we have to rush it. Like, we can definitely pull a name out of thin air, but my brand, the company name that I have, Creatively Conscious, came to me through years and years of turmoil of not having my own identity within the workplace, always having to be the person that somebody told me I was. So now you're a fundraiser, now you're a project manager, now you're a festivals and events manager, now you're a creative producer, now you are a gallery installer. Now you're a young people's coordinator. Now you're an engagement mentor. Like, it was a joke. Honestly, it was such a joke. And so I wanted this umbrella of Creatively Conscious Ltd does these things. And I, as a person, also can plug in and do these things. So it's really interesting, I think, with personal brand, because people just need a way to be able to understand what it is that you do, and then your brand sits underneath that and people start to recognize it, and it really helps with the flow of subscribers as well. Good. Okay. Any other questions about monetizing a paid newsletter versus running a membership on Substack before I go and get my groceries? If not, you're very welcome to come to class tomorrow. There'll be a replay. There's 50% off for my members. The class costs £80, but that includes the accountability group for the rest of the year. So you can all work with each other on ideas and, the confidence to launch and stuff. Yeah, so it's £40 if you're in my membership. It's £80 if you're not. You're so welcome to come. I'd love to see you. It's not going to be a busy class, so there'll be time to ask questions. I think there's only about 9 people booked on. It was kind of purposeful in a way. I've done so many things for free over the years, and there's so much of me. I was saying to my husband last week when I was a bit feverish, I was like, I just feel so exposed. There's so much of me on the internet all the time. And he was like, you're all right. You're just not very well. And I was like, I'm really not very well. And that is part of it. Like, it is a bit strange. Like, I do find it a bit strange sometimes that so much of me is on the internet. And I really this year have been focused on carving out more intimate spaces. And a lot of them have to be paid now. Like, it just has to be paid because of the trolls and the weirdos. And I'm just like, I haven't got capacity to manage that. So I did run a lovely free class a few weeks ago called Audience Alchemy, which was a deep dive into audience development and the audience development work that I love. And it really came from the same place, because I could see people getting confused about who they were writing to and then getting in that freeze response. Like, I don't even know what to say because I don't know who's here anymore. I don't know if anyone's resonating. Nobody's liking my work. No one's sharing my work. So that's up. Actually, you can get that on Creatively Conscious actually on Substack, because I have left it paywall free for a while. So if you want to watch that class, please do. It's there for you. Okay, if there are no more questions, then I will pop off. But just a reminder, I'm here for you guys. Tag me in notes anytime. Ask me any questions if you're in the membership. I'm looking forward to seeing some of you at class tomorrow. Monetize your newsletter with paid subscriptions and build recurring revenue. Recurring revenue for me as a creative helps me feel really secure. And it's what I focused on 5 years ago. So I set up 9 income streams, and one of them was Substack. So one of them was my paid newsletter on Substack, and I'm still going sort of over 3 years later. And I feel like turning up to an income stream and pulling a lever is just a helpful place to be when things feel really unsteady, and you're not sure in terms of the wider world how to position how you feel about being self-employed or a business owner. It can feel really wobbly. So I just think it's really, really helpful to have a paid newsletter and an intimate group of people to write to and speak to. I was saying to my friend yesterday, actually, we have a writing date together every other week, and I'm writing my book in that writing date that we do. But I was saying to her, I actually feel really compelled to write with the filter of, this is just going to be for my paid subscribers today, and just see if it shifts or changes anything in terms of like that kind of performance energy, that we get, where we're going to put a post out to everybody, or we're just going to put a post out to an intimate group of people. And that's one of the things I love about running my paid newsletter on Substack, because I can be super duper vulnerable. I would say I've probably like taken the vulnerability level right up. Like I would say like some of my posts have probably been about like 60% of my vulnerable self, because of the paywall. And I think it's such a gift. Not that you have to be vulnerable, but it is just a beautiful space to hold with people. Anyway, I'm going to go and do my grocery shopping, get blueberries for the little one, oranges for the big one, do the whole shopping thing. I'm at Lidl, if anyone's interested. It's my favourite place to come food shopping. And I will see some of you at class tomorrow. Don't forget, there's 50% off if you're in the membership. There's the accountability group until Christmas. And the rest of you, I'll see you soon. Thanks so much for tuning in.